everybody. It is Dean Z speaking to you from the beautiful Jeffries Hall at the University of Michigan Law School. And today I want to talk to you about a recurring topic. Get the questions about this literally every time I talk to a group of students, and it is this: K to JD, yes or no, yay or nay. First, I will say my usual disclaimer, which is I have crumbled and folded and adopted the terminology K to JD, but it is not natural to me. I know that it is like internet parlance that is not totally natural to me, and I just want to say that, but I think that's how you all are thinking of it, so that's what I'm going to call it. So a couple questions I've gotten in the last couple weeks on this. One is sort of just a general: is there a disadvantage to applying if you're coming straight from undergrad, and or how important is work experience? So sort of two sides, two angles on this same question. So first, I would say I do think it's a little bit of a shifting landscape. So I've been doing this for a long time. 25 years ago, if you asked me this, I would be much more firm and unnuanced and say, like, no, it's not a problem. It's totally fine to apply straight from undergrad. Knock yourself out. I might then give a postscript saying, personally, I am glad that I took time off. I felt more ready. So if you're inclined to take time off, you should listen to that. But if you're ready to go, you know you. And to some degree, that's still my advice. And in terms of whether there is a disadvantage, though, I think there is maybe a slightly growing disadvantage in the sense, and by disadvantage, I mean that you are perhaps a little less likely to get admitted if you're coming straight out of undergrad than if you were the exact same you who had been applying a decade ago. And in large part, that has to do with the changing employment landscape, where law firms, in particular big law firms, are hiring ever earlier. So they're talking to 1L students, in their first semester, before there's any grades, before they've sat for exams. Sometimes they're even giving job offers before people have sat for exams or even finished their first set of classes. And the people who they want to hire, or part of the assessment process, I guess I should say, is figuring out, are you ready to be a lawyer? And if you're coming straight from undergrad and you don't have any grades to demonstrate how brainy you are, and you haven't compiled a lot of work experience while in undergrad, I think that might create a disadvantage for you if you're getting recruited that early on. I hope you understood as I was saying that there are a lot of reservations, and I will address those. This is not a straightforward answer, I guess I'd say. But it is definitely the case that employers, when these big law firms are going to be paying you north of $220,000 a year, and they may be understandably uncomfortable giving you the level of responsibility and at that level of pay unless they have some pretty solid foundation for thinking you're up to it, that you have done work that will enable you to thrive in a law firm atmosphere. To some extent, grades stand as a proxy for that. Like if they can see your grades, that they might think, well, they haven't had a lot of work experience, but look how well they're doing in law school. They have an enormous amount of potential, so they will be fine. But if they're interviewing you before you've gotten any grades, or alternatively, at the latest at this point, they're interviewing you with one semester of grades, then there's more weight that is going to be placed on what you've done before you ever got to law school. So coming straight out of undergrad doesn't necessarily answer the question of what kind of experience you've had. You can, some people have really robust summer work experience. Some people are also working during the school year. Some people have, really impressive, unpaid positions doing volunteer work, but that involves a lot of organization and diligence, and that you have to answer to people and produce things. And all of that is very valuable. It doesn't necessarily have to come in the form of postgraduate full-time work experience, but you have to be able to point to things that will show an employer, okay, I think they are seasoned enough that they are going to be fine in this setting. The second consideration is, of course, you have to get through the interviews. And so it's not just your resume, it's like how you're having a back and forth with people. And there are a couple different disadvantages to doing that if you haven't had some work experience that allows you to formulate answers to certain questions. In particular, law firms are looking to see, do you have a sense of what you want to do with your law degree? Do you have sort of a slightly, at least, sophisticated understanding about the business of law and the practice of law and the different areas of law? Some of that you can get just from working, right? You'll just be more fluid at talking about things if you've had work experience, whether that's in a law firm or not. So in the absence of that, I asked the Office of Career Planning here, and specifically Valerie in the office was very helpful about giving me some resources that they recommend for our students who are coming straight from undergrad or who otherwise, need a little bit of help formulating ideas about what to answer, how to answer questions from firms on these topics. And I'm going to give you some of those. But my point is, if you feel like that might be an area of weakness for you, you should prepare by doing a little extracurricular outside reading and viewing in order to understand more what you're getting into. So some of these sources that they recommend are, one, a podcast called How I Lawyer by a Georgetown law professor named Jonah Perlin. There's also a podcast that LSAC does. I think it's called I Am the Law. I should know that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So that's another one you might want to think about. There's also a set of videos called Hot Shot Legal. I think that's on YouTube. And then there's a website called theforage.com, which has a lot of simulations that law firms themselves are providing for how to think about different areas of the law. And so I took a look at that latter one in particular. I thought it was really interesting. So those are three things you can do to start generating thoughts about being a sophisticated lawyer. Now, you'll note that I keep talking about law firms in particular. And if you want to be in a law firm, I'm talking to you. If you want to do a very different kind of work, like anything public interest or public sector, it's a very different set of considerations because, for one thing, the time frame is much different. It's slower, and you have more time to absorb some of this information just by virtue of being in law school, going to lunch talks, meeting other students who have some ideas, talking to faculty, talking to your career planning people. So it's a little bit more paced, and you'll be able to absorb this information more easily over a longer period of time. And also, there's less at stake because public interest employers are hiring for summer jobs, not necessarily for postgraduate jobs. Law firms, on the other hand, when they're hiring for summer jobs, they're really hiring for what you're going to do after law school for the most part. Like, most people return to the firm that they go to in their first or second summer. So there is more at stake from the law firm perspective. So public interest and government employers are a little bit more easygoing on these issues. So doesn't mean you shouldn't look at these if you find them interesting and you want to start thinking along these terms, but this is a bigger deal for the people who want to go into law firms. All right. That is all I have to say about that topic. And now I want to talk about grammar. The other day, I was watching TV, relaxing at the end of the evening, getting ready to, nod off or whatever. And someone said something that was so deeply distressing to me, but the good news was it gives me a grammar segment. And the word that they used was over-exaggerating. That's not a word. It's so dumb. Exaggerating means to exaggerate. So you can't over-exaggerate. You're already exaggerating. Don't modify that with over. It makes no sense. It sounds so dumb. I really hate it. It was distressing. And Mr. Dean Z, equally distressed. The two of us were in real psychic pain. hearing that word on a TV show. So excise that from your vocabulary if you're ever tempted to use it. And if you hear someone using it, don't get fooled into thinking it must be okay because it was on TV, because it's not. All right. And that's all for today. Thank you, as always, to Dustin Johnston. And thanks also to Valerie Brummel, who gave me the references that I shared with you. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. And if you have questions, please leave them in the comments below or email us at law.jd.admissions@umich.edu and put vlog in the subject line. And wherever you go blue.